Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Speak English Easily. Today, we're diving into a topic that's absolutely crucial for anyone who wants to unlock real fluency, how to actually think in English.
Yeah.
And we've got a stack of great sources here.
Oh, nice.
All about breaking through that barrier where you understand you can even speak.
Right.
But you're still translating in your head.
It's a common sticking point for sure.
Yeah.
Very frustrating. Like you're always one step behind in a conversation.
So let's just jump right into these sources.
Okay.
One of the things that really struck me was how many of them emphasized starting simple. And it sounds almost too basic.
Right.
But why is that so important?
Well, think about it this way.
Okay.
Your brain is a super efficient machine, right?
Right.
It's always looking for the easiest way to get things done. So if you're constantly switching back and forth between languages, it's like running two programs at once.
Okay.
Things are bound to get slow and clunky.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But how does starting simple actually help rewire our brains to think in English?
So it's all about building new neural pathways.
Okay.
Instead of going through the extra step of translation, you're training your brain to directly link the thought with the English words.
Got it.
One of the sources gave a great example. Instead of mentally translating, I need to make coffee, try to just think that phrase in English. It might feel almost silly at first because it seems too easy.
Right.
But that repetition, that direct connection is what starts to create that mental shortcut.
So it's like building a new mental muscle. The more you use it,
Exactly.
the stronger it gets.
Yeah.
I love that analogy.
There you go.
So,
And another great way to strengthen that English thinking muscle is to use your surroundings to build vocabulary.
Okay.
Think about it.
Yeah.
How do babies learn language?
Oh, that's interesting.
They look around. They hear words associated with the things they see.
Yeah.
Their brains start making connections.
It's true. It's like turning your entire house into a language learning lab.
Exactly.
Just walk around and label everything you see.
Exactly.
That's actually kind of fun.
It is, and it really taps into the way our brains are wired. We are visual creatures.
That's true.
Think about a time you visited a new place.
Okay.
You probably remember the sights.
Yeah.
Even better than the specific conversations you had.
Yeah, I do. That's true.
Our brains are incredibly good at linking those visuals with language.
That makes sense.
So see a lamp, think lamp, and English, of course.
Right.
Keep doing that, and you'll be amazed at how quickly those words start to stick.
That's good. Okay.
Yeah.
So we've got start simple and use your surroundings as two great starting points.
Absolutely.
What other gems
Okay.
did you uncover in these sources?
Well, several of them emphasized going beyond just your home and really immersing yourself in English media news articles, apps, music, movies, even podcasts like this one.
That's great. But isn't that something that everyone already tells you to do when you're learning a language?
Sure.
What makes this different when we're talking about thinking in English?
It's about being more intentional with how you consume that media.
Okay.
One of the sources suggested a really interesting approach with movies.
Okay.
Start by watching with subtitles in your native language.
Right.
Then switch to English subtitles.
Gotcha.
Eventually, try watching with no subtitles at all.
Okay.
It's a gradual progression that helps train your brain to think in English.
Got it.
Even when you're just relaxing and enjoying a film.
I like that. It's like slowly weaning yourself off the translation crutch.
Exactly.
Another technique that I thought was fascinating was this idea of shadowing.
Oh, yeah.
Can you explain what that is and why it's so effective?
Absolutely. Shadowing is basically mimicking a native speaker, listening to their speech and repeating it as closely as possible, trying to match their tone, rhythm, even their intonation. It might feel a bit strange at first, but it's a fantastic way to train not just your vocabulary, but also your pronunciation and the musicality of the language.
So it's not just what you're saying, but how you're saying it.
There you go.
It's like you're stepping into the shoes of a native speaker.
Yes.
Which I guess is the whole point.
Exactly.
Of learning to think in English.
That's right.
And speaking of speaking. One of the sources suggested something
Okay.
that some listeners might find a bit
Yeah.
unconventional.
What's that?
They recommend talking to yourself in English.
Oh, right.
I've got to admit, I've tried that before.
Yeah.
And felt a little silly.
Sure.
Is there a way to make that feel less awkward?
Well, think about it this way.
Okay.
Elite athletes use self-talk all the time.
Right.
For motivation and focus.
Yeah.
They're basically coaching themselves through challenges.
Right.
Why not apply that same principle to language learning?
Interesting.
You can practice different scenarios in your head, work through difficult grammar points,
Right.
and even build your confidence for real-life conversations.
Okay, so I never thought about it like that.
Yeah.
So we've got this toolkit of strategies, starting simple, immersing ourselves in English media, shadowing native speakers, and even talking to ourselves.
Right.
Anything else in these sources that really jumped out at you?
Well, one thing that was emphasized in several of the sources was the power of learning common phrases.
Okay, like everyday greetings, asking for directions, ordering food.
That kind of thing.
That kind of thing.
Yep.
But we already learned those in textbooks.
Yes. But it's about shifting from just knowing the words to being able to use them without thinking.
Got it.
These phrases become mental shortcuts.
Okay.
Instead of getting bogged down
Yeah.
translating grammar in the middle of a conversation,
Yeah.
you can smoothly navigate those basic interactions.
Okay.
And that builds momentum,
Yeah.
keeping you engaged
Okay.
and making the whole experience feel more natural.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's like you're building up a library of ready-made responses.
Right?
That you can access instantly
Exactly.
without having to translate on the fly.
That's the goal.
It's like having those pre-programmed responses in a chatbot,
Yeah.
except you're the chatbot.
Exactly.
And speaking of keeping things flowing smoothly, one theme that ran through all of these sources was the importance of having fun at the process.
Yes.
It shouldn't feel like a chore.
It shouldn't.
Yes. I think that's where a lot of language learning programs go wrong.
I agree.
They get so focused on the mechanics that they forget about the joy of discovery.
That's right.
So how do we inject more fun into the process of learning to think in English?
Well, it goes back to that idea of making those neural connections.
Okay.
But this time, connecting English with things you enjoy.
Gotcha.
So many of the sources talked about finding ways to Englishify your hobbies and interests.
So if I love cooking,
Right.
maybe I start trying recipes in English.
Exactly.
Or if I'm a big music fan, I could dive into
Yes.
English lyrics.
Totally. Or even something as simple as switching your phone settings to English.
Oh, okay.
You're still using your phone every day, but now you're subtly reinforcing those English pathways.
It's like turning those everyday activities into mini language lessons.
Exactly.
I remember when I was trying to improve my Spanish, I started watching Spanish soap operas.
Oh, nice.
It was cheesy, but it totally worked.
That's a perfect example.
Yeah.
And you touched on something important there.
What's that?
It was fun for you.
All right.
That's key.
Yeah.
Because enjoying the process makes it so much more sustainable.
Speaking of sustainable,
Yeah.
one thing that always trips me up is motivation.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I'll start strong, but then life gets busy and I fall off track.
Happens.
Did any of the sources address how to stay motivated
Yeah.
over the long haul?
Several of them did.
Okay.
And they all pointed back to the power of setting small, achievable goals.
Got it.
It's that whole idea of micro wins, those tiny victories that trigger the reward system in your brain and keep you coming back for more.
So instead of saying, I'm going to master English in 3 months,
Yeah.
it's more about saying, I'm going to learn 5 new words today.
Exactly.
Oh.
Or I'm going to watch one English language news clip.
Gotcha.
Or even just, I'm going to think in English for 5 minutes while I'm getting ready in the morning.
Okay.
It's about building a habit.
Right.
One small step at a time.
I love that.
Yeah.
It feels so much less daunting than trying to overhaul your entire thought process overnight.
It is.
But there's still that part of me that worries about making mistakes,
Sure.
especially in a professional setting.
Yeah.
That can feel really high stakes.
Sure.
Did the sources offer any advice for dealing with that fear?
Absolutely.
Okay.
In fact, several sources stress that making mistakes is an essential part of the learning process.
Right.
It's how we grow.
Right.
Think about a baby learning to walk.
Okay.
They don't just get up and strut across the room. They stumble.
Yeah.
They fall, get back up and try again.
Yeah.
It's through those mistakes that they learn and improve.
It's like that famous Thomas Edison quote.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And language learning is no different.
Okay.
Those stumbles, those mistakes are actually valuable feedback.
Gotcha.
They show you where you need to focus your efforts.
So how do we shift our mindset from seeing mistakes as failures to seeing them as opportunities for growth?
Well, one of the sources suggested that actively seeking out a supportive learning environment.
Gotcha.
Whether that's a language partner, a tutor, or an online community where you feel comfortable practicing without judgment.
That's so important.
It is.
It's about creating that safe space where you can experiment, make mistakes, and learn from them.
Right.
Without that fear of being ridiculed.
Exactly.
And speaking of safe spaces, one thing that I found really interesting in the sources was this emphasis on focusing on fluency over perfection.
Yeah.
That's something I struggle with.
Really?
Yeah. I get so caught up in trying to sound like a native speaker, getting every grammar rule perfect.
Right.
That I end up getting tongue-tied and completely losing my train of thought.
It's a common trap.
Yeah.
But remember, the ultimate goal of language is communication.
Right.
And you can communicate effectively, even if you make a few grammatical errors or have a slight accent.
Right.
The key is to be able to express your ideas clearly and confidently.
So it's more like aiming for that conversational flow.
Exactly.
Rather than striving for some unattainable level of flawless speech.
Think about how you communicate in your native language.
Okay.
Do you stress over every single word and grammar rule?
Not at all.
Right.
I just focus on getting my message across.
And the sources really drove that point home. Yeah.
Native speakers are incredibly forgiving when it comes to these things.
Yeah.
They care more about understanding your meaning than dissecting your grammar.
That's reassuring.
It is.
So fluency trumps perfection.
Yes.
What other counterintuitive ideas could these sources present?
Well, one that might surprise you is the idea of using your native language strategically to actually boost your English fluency.
Interesting.
It sounds kind of backward, but it can be really effective.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
How does that work? So how does using your native language help you think in English? It seems counterintuitive.
It's about using your native language as a tool, not a crutch. Let's say you're struggling to express a complex idea in English. Try articulating it clearly in your native language first.
Okay, so get the thought organized in a way that makes sense to me.
Exactly. Then you can break it down into smaller chunks and focus on translating those individual pieces into English. So it's like building a bridge between the two languages, using what I already know to help me construct the new way of thinking.
That's a great way to put it. And the sources also recommend actively translating things you encounter in your daily life, signs, menus, even snippets of conversations you overhear. It's like turning your everyday experiences into mini language lessons.
I love that. It's about being present and engaged with the language all around you. It reminds me of when I was living abroad. I used to challenge myself to think in English while I was grocery shopping. It turned a mundane task into a fun little language learning game.
That's a fantastic strategy. And it highlights the point that thinking in English isn't something that just happens overnight. It's a gradual process that involves consciously incorporating English into different aspects of your life. The sources we explored today offer a variety of tools and techniques. The key is to find what works best for you and to be patient with yourself.
Speaking of patience, one of the sources touched on the idea of celebrating small victories. Why is that so important in language learning? It's easy to get bogged down when you feel like you're not progressing fast enough.
Because learning a language can be a long and challenging journey. It's easy to get discouraged if you're only focusing on the end goal of fluency. But by celebrating small milestones along the way, learning a new phrase, having your first conversation in English, understanding a movie without subtitles, you're reinforcing positive feelings about the learning process and keeping yourself motivated.
It's like giving yourself little rewards to stay excited about the journey. Those rewards can be anything that brings you joy, watching your favorite English language TV show, listening to a new English song, or even just treating yourself to a delicious cup of coffee.
Exactly. It's about making the learning process enjoyable and rewarding. And remember, every small step you take brings you closer to your goal of thinking and speaking in English with confidence and ease.
So for those listening, remember, this isn't about becoming perfectly fluent overnight. It's about shifting your mindset, building new habits, and embracing the journey. Start small, be consistent, and celebrate those little wins along the way.
And most importantly, have fun with it. Language learning should be an adventure, not a chore.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So, as you go about your day-to-day, I encourage you to think about one small way you can incorporate English into your thoughts. Maybe it's simply describing your surroundings in English or listening to an English podcast on your commute.
Every little bit counts. And remember, we're here to support you on your journey.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of thinking in English. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to speak English easily, leave a like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Until next time, happy learning.